A chubby wedding planner walks into a Mafia boss's wedding and does the one thing nobody around him ever dares to do. She tells him the truth. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake was staying long enough to watch his bride walk out. Because the moment that door closed, she stopped being the wedding planner and became the bride. Maya Bennett had planned over 60 weddings in her career, but none of them had ever made her hands shake while reading an email. The subject line was simple: Walker Wedding, Confirmation. She read it 3 times before it sank in. Out of every planner in Chicago, Ethan Walker's team had chosen her, not one of the big-name firms with glass offices on Michigan Avenue. Her, Maya Bennett, who ran her business out of a converted loft above a flower shop, with a team of 4 and a waitlist 3 months long because people trusted her work more than her marketing. She called her assistant, Priya, the second she finished reading. "Tell me I'm not dreaming," Maya said. "You're not dreaming," Priya said. "But, Maya, do you know who Ethan Walker is?" Maya did. Everyone in Chicago knew the name, even if they couldn't always say exactly why. Ethan Walker ran one of the largest private investment firms in the Midwest, with offices in 4 cities and a reputation for closing deals that other people couldn't even get a meeting for. There were whispers too, quiet ones, the kind people only brought up after a second drink. Whispers about who his family really did business with and how exactly the Walker name had built its fortune 2 generations ago. None of that mattered to Maya. A wedding was a wedding. People were people, no matter how big their bank accounts were. 3 days later, she stood in the lobby of one of the most expensive hotels in downtown Chicago, waiting to meet him for the first time. The meeting room was on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Maya had expected to wait. Important men like Ethan Walker always made people wait, but the door opened right on time, and a tall man in a dark gray suit walked in, shook her hand, and sat down across from her without wasting a single second. "Ms. Bennett," he said, "thank you for coming. I'll be honest with you. I've already been through 3 planners this year. None of them worked out." "What happened to them?" Maya asked. A few people in the room shifted uncomfortably, like she'd asked something she wasn't supposed to ask. Ethan just looked at her, and for a second, Maya thought she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. "They told me what I wanted to hear," he said. "I don't have time for that." "Then I'll tell you what you need to hear," Maya said. "Starting now. Your guest list is 600 people, and you've asked for the ceremony to run 45 minutes. That's not going to work. People will be bored before the vows even start." The room went quiet. One of his assistants actually put down her pen. Ethan studied Maya for a long moment. "Why not?" "Because a wedding isn't a business presentation," Maya said. "It needs to breathe. Cut the ceremony to 25 minutes and put that extra time into the reception, where people actually want to be. And if I disagree? Then you'll have 600 restless guests checking their phones during your vows," Maya said simply. "But it's your wedding, Mr. Walker. I'm just telling you what I'd tell any client." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Ethan nodded once, like he'd just confirmed something he already suspected. 25 minutes, he said. "Done. What else?" And just like that, the meeting changed completely. For the next hour, Maya walked through the entire wedding. Venue logistics, vendor timelines, seating arrangements for a guest list that included business partners from 3 continents. Every time his assistants hesitated to push back on one of Ethan's requests, Maya didn't. She challenged the budget on the floral arrangements. She flagged a scheduling conflict with the caterer that nobody else had noticed. She even told him, politely but directly, that the wedding cake design he'd approved looked outdated. He didn't get angry. If anything, he leaned back in his chair and let her talk, occasionally asking sharp follow-up questions that told Maya he was listening to every word. Near the end of the meeting, one of his assistants quietly mentioned that the bride, Caroline Reed, hadn't been able to make it today. She was tied up with personal matters again. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. It was barely noticeable, but Maya noticed. "She'll be at the next one," he said, a little too quickly. Maya filed that away without saying anything. It wasn't her place to ask. Not yet. As the meeting wrapped up and people began gathering their things, Ethan walked Maya to the elevator himself, something, Priya later told her, he never did with vendors. "You're not what I expected, Ms. Bennett," he said. "Good or bad?" Maya asked. "Good," Ethan said. "Most people around me are afraid to disagree with me. I'd rather know the truth, even when it's inconvenient." Maya smiled. "Then we're going to get along just fine, Mr. Walker." The elevator doors closed, and Maya stood there for a moment, replaying the meeting in her head. The biggest wedding of her career had officially begun. What she didn't know, what nobody outside that family had any idea about yet, was that this wedding was already cracking at the seams. And in less than 3 weeks, Maya wouldn't just be planning it, she'd be standing inside it. The Walker family estate sat right on the edge of Lake Geneva, with white stone walls and gardens that looked like they belonged in a magazine. Maya had organized weekend retreats before, but never anywhere like this. The plan was simple on paper: 2 days of walkthroughs, vendor tastings, and a final rehearsal for the ceremony layout. In reality, it turned into something much harder to read. Maya arrived early Saturday morning with her team, setting up a small workspace in the estate's sunroom. By 10 o'clock, she finally met the woman whose wedding she'd been planning for weeks without ever speaking to: Caroline Reed. Caroline was beautiful in an effortless way: soft brown hair, a quiet voice, the kind of presence that made people lower their volume around her without meaning to. She greeted Maya warmly, complimented the floral samples laid out on the table, and apologized for missing the first meeting. "I've just had a lot going on," Caroline said, smiling. "Wedding stress, I guess." "That's completely normal," Maya said. "Everyone goes through it." But as the day went on, Maya started to notice things that didn't quite add up. During the seating chart review, Caroline kept changing her mind. First, she wanted her cousins near the front. Then she didn't. Then she asked Maya to remove an entire table of guests, old family friends of the Walkers, without giving a reason, only to add them back 20 minutes later when one of Ethan's assistants gently reminded her who they were. When they moved to the menu tasting, Caroline barely touched her plate. She kept glancing toward the windows, toward the lake, like she was waiting for someone to walk in. "Is everything okay?" Maya asked quietly, while the staff cleared the table. "Of course," Caroline said, a little too fast. "Sorry, I think I'm just tired." Maya let it go. Brides got overwhelmed all the time. She'd seen women cry over napkin colors before. Stress did strange things to people in the weeks before a wedding, and Caroline had every reason to be exhausted. Between the size of the event and the attention that came with marrying into the Walker name, the pressure had to be enormous. Still, something about it didn't sit right. Later that afternoon, Maya walked through the gardens with Caroline to finalize the outdoor photo locations. It was quiet out there, away from the staff and the noise of setup crews working in the background. For a few minutes, Caroline seemed to relax. "This place is beautiful," Maya said, looking out at the lake. "I can't imagine growing up here." "I didn't grow up here," Caroline said. "This is Ethan's family's place. I just visit." "How long have you two been together?" "Almost 2 years," Caroline said. There was a pause before she added, "It feels longer." Maya wasn't sure how to take that. She decided to keep things light. "Well, from what I've seen, he seems like he genuinely cares about getting this right. He's been very involved in the planning." Caroline gave a small laugh, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "He's involved in everything. That's just who he is." They walked a little further before Caroline suddenly stopped near a stone bench overlooking the water. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Honestly." "Of course." "Do you ever plan weddings for people who maybe shouldn't be getting married?" Maya blinked, caught off guard. I don't think I've ever had someone ask me that directly." Caroline shook her head quickly, like she regretted the question the moment it left her mouth. "Sorry, ignore that. I'm being silly. Pre-wedding nerves, like I said." Before Maya could respond, one of Ethan's assistants appeared at the edge of the garden, calling Caroline back for a call with the florist. Caroline gave Maya an apologetic smile and walked off, leaving Maya standing by the lake with a strange, uneasy feeling settling into her chest. That evening, during dinner with the wedding's core team, Maya watched Ethan and Caroline together for the first time in a more relaxed setting. On the surface, everything looked fine. He pulled out her chair. He asked about her day. But Maya noticed how often Ethan's phone buzzed and how quickly he excused himself to take calls, 3 times during dinner alone. Each time, Caroline's eyes would follow him out of the room, and each time, her smile would fade just slightly until he came back. At one point, while Ethan was on a call in the hallway, one of the older staff members leaned toward Maya and said quietly, "It's good he's marrying someone who keeps him grounded. He's been different lately. Distracted." "Distracted how?" Maya asked. The staff member just shrugged and changed the subject, like she'd already said more than she meant to. By the time Maya packed up her things that night and headed back to her car, she couldn't shake the feeling that something underneath this wedding wasn't right. Caroline's strange question by the lake kept replaying in her mind. "Do you ever plan weddings for people who shouldn't be getting married?" Maya told herself it was nothing. Pre-wedding jitters were common, even among couples who seemed perfect on paper. She'd seen brides panic over much smaller things and walk down the aisle happy a week later. But as she drove away from the estate, watching the lights of the house disappear in her rearview mirror, Maya had a quiet, nagging thought she couldn't quite shake. Something about this wedding felt different, and somewhere deep down, Maya knew she was the only one who had noticed it yet. The trip to Nashville wasn't supposed to involve Maya at all. Originally, the plan was simple. Ethan's team would fly down to finalize contracts with the band booked for the reception, along with a few last-minute guest accommodations for out-of-town family. Maya was only meant to handle a phone call with the venue's catering liaison. But 2 days before the trip, half of Ethan's team came down with the flu, and someone needed to go in person to sign off on the final details. "You're the only one who actually understands what we need," Ethan told her over the phone. "I'll have my assistant book your flight." Maya almost laughed. "You want me to fly to Nashville with you? Is that a problem?" "No," she said. "Just not what I expected when I took this job." The flight down was quiet. Ethan spent most of it on his laptop, occasionally stepping away to take calls in a low voice. Maya used the time to review her notes, half expecting the whole trip to feel exactly like every other business meeting she'd sat through with him. Efficient, polite, and a little distant. Then their flight back got delayed. And then delayed again. And by the time they reached the rental car counter that evening, every available car in the city had already been booked. "There's a shuttle that runs every 2 hours, the woman at the counter said. "Or you could try the rideshare app, but with the storm coming through, wait times are pretty long right now." Ethan looked at his phone, then at Maya. "Looks like we're stuck here for a while." What followed wasn't anything like Maya expected. Instead of retreating to his hotel room to work, Ethan suggested they walk to a nearby diner to wait out the worst of the storm. Maya assumed it would be brief, a quick bite, maybe some small talk about the wedding timeline. Instead, they ended up sitting in a corner booth for nearly 3 hours, watching rain hammer against the windows while the storm knocked out power to half the block. With no laptop, no meetings, and no assistants hovering nearby, Ethan was different. He ordered a basic burger and fries, the kind of meal Maya doubted he ate often, and actually seemed to enjoy it. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said, halfway through her coffee. "And you can tell me it's none of my business." "Go ahead."
Why does everyone seem so nervous around you? Ethan was quiet for a moment, turning his glass slowly on the table. Because of my last name, mostly. People hear Walker, and they assume things. Some of those assumptions aren't completely wrong, historically speaking. My grandfather built a lot of this company in ways I don't agree with. I've spent a long time trying to change what that name means. Is that why you do the anonymous stuff? Maya asked. Ethan looked up, surprised. What stuff? I saw it in your calendar when we were coordinating schedules last week. There's a recurring block every month labeled Personal, Do Not Schedule. Your assistant mentioned once it was for site visits, but she got weird about explaining what kind. For the first time since Maya had met him, Ethan looked almost embarrassed. It's nothing dramatic, he said. There's a program that helps small business owners get back on their feet after they've been pushed out by bigger companies, sometimes companies connected to firms like mine. I fund part of it. Quietly. Why quietly? Because if people knew, they'd assume it was for publicity, or that I was trying to make up for something. He shrugged. Maybe I am. I don't really know. I just know it matters more when nobody's watching. Maya studied him for a long moment. The polished, controlled businessman from the boardroom seemed very far away from the man sitting across from her now, soaked from the rain, talking about something he clearly never discussed with anyone. That's not what I expected from you, she admitted. Most things about me aren't, Ethan said. And for the first time, Maya heard something almost tired in his voice. When the rain finally let up, they walked back toward the hotel together, weaving around puddles and fallen branches. At one point, Ethan stopped to help an elderly man whose umbrella had blown apart, holding it steady while the man gathered his bags. He didn't think twice about it, didn't even seem to register that Maya was watching. Back at the hotel, as they waited for the elevator, Ethan turned to her. Thank you for today, he said. I haven't talked like that with anyone in a long time. Any time, Maya said, and meant it. The elevator doors opened, and for a brief, strange moment, neither of them moved. Then Ethan stepped back, letting Maya go first. And the moment passed.
That night, lying in her hotel room, Maya found herself thinking about the day differently than she expected to. She'd come to Nashville expecting to deal with contracts and schedules. Instead, she'd seen a side of Ethan Walker that, as far as she could tell, almost nobody else had ever seen. It didn't change anything about the wedding. Ethan was still getting married in less than 2 weeks to a woman Maya barely knew but had grown strangely concerned about. But for the first time, Maya realized she didn't see Ethan as just a client anymore. She saw him as a person, complicated, guarded, and far more human than the rumors about his family ever gave him credit for. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small, quiet thought formed that she immediately pushed away. This is dangerous. Back in Chicago, the wedding machine kicked into full gear. With 5 days left, every minor detail suddenly felt urgent. Final dress fittings, seating chart approvals, last vendor walkthroughs. Maya barely had time to think about Nashville, though every now and then, in quiet moments, she found herself replaying parts of that conversation in the diner, the rain hitting the windows, the way Ethan had looked when he talked about the things he never told anyone. She pushed those thoughts aside. There was too much to do. Thursday afternoon was set aside for Caroline's final dress fitting at a private bridal showroom downtown, one of the few moments in the entire schedule that belonged just to the bride. Maya arrived early to coordinate with the stylist, only to find Caroline's assistant standing outside the fitting room looking flustered. "She's not here yet," the assistant said. "She was supposed to be here 20 minutes ago." Maya checked her phone. No messages. She tried calling Caroline directly, straight to voicemail. She tried again 10 minutes later. Same thing. "Has this happened before?" Maya asked. The assistant hesitated. "A couple of times. Smaller things, though. Never something this important." An hour passed. Then 2. The stylist began quietly rearranging the schedule, trying not to make it obvious that the bride hadn't shown up to her own final fitting 5 days before a 600-person wedding. Maya finally reached Caroline late that evening, not through a call, but a short text that came in out of nowhere. "I'm sorry, I just needed some air today. Can we talk tomorrow morning? Just us, before everything starts." Maya stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Of course, whatever you need." She didn't tell Ethan, not yet. Caroline had asked for just us, and Maya respected that, though she spent most of that night unable to sleep, turning over everything that had happened since Lake Geneva. The seating chart Caroline kept changing, the strange question by the water, the way her smile never quite reached her eyes whenever Ethan stepped away. Maya had a feeling about what tomorrow's conversation might be. She just hoped she was wrong. The next morning, Maya arrived at the small cafe Caroline had chosen, a quiet spot a few blocks from the estate, nothing fancy, nothing that screamed Walker. She waited 20 minutes, then 30. Caroline never came. Instead, Maya's phone buzzed with a message from the estate's housekeeper, asking if Maya could come by as soon as possible. Something about a letter addressed to both Maya and Mr. Walker. When Maya arrived at the estate, the atmosphere had already shifted. Staff moved quietly through the halls, speaking in low voices. Ethan stood in the study, holding a folded piece of paper, his face unreadable. "She's gone," he said, before Maya even asked. "Caroline left this morning, took a bag, left her car here, had someone drive her to the airport before sunrise." "Is she okay?" Maya asked immediately. "Is she safe?" "She's fine," Ethan said. "She called her parents herself an hour ago. She's safe. She just—" He looked down at the letter again. "She left this." He handed it to Maya, and after a brief hesitation, she read it. The letter was handwritten, the handwriting slightly uneven in places, like Caroline had started it more than once. "Ethan, I don't know how to say this without hurting you, so I'm just going to say it plainly. I can't marry you. Not because of anything you did wrong. You've been kind to me, patient with me, and you deserve someone who feels about you the way you deserve to be felt about. I don't love you, not the way a wife should love her husband. I think some part of me has known that for a long time, but I kept telling myself it would grow into something real once we were married. It hasn't, and the longer I stayed quiet, the more I realized I was about to trap both of us in something neither of us would ever be happy in. I'm not running from you. I'm running toward a life I think I actually want, one I haven't let myself imagine in years. I'm safe. I'm with people who care about me. Please don't worry about that part. I know the timing is terrible. I know what this means for the wedding, the guests, everything you've built around this day. I'm sorry for that more than I can say. But I'd rather hurt you now, honestly, than spend the rest of our lives hurting you quietly. Please don't try to find me right away. I just need some time. Caroline." Maya lowered the letter slowly, unsure what to say. The room was completely silent. "Are you okay?" she finally asked. Ethan let out a long breath, sitting down heavily in the chair behind his desk. "Honestly, I think I've known for a while too. We were good together on paper, just not in the way that's supposed to matter." He didn't sound angry. If anything, he sounded almost relieved and exhausted and completely overwhelmed by the practical disaster now sitting on his doorstep. "Ethan," Maya said carefully, "the wedding is in 5 days, 600 guests, vendors, flights already booked. What happens now?" Ethan looked up at her, and for the first time since Maya had met him, he looked genuinely lost. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we're going to need to figure it out fast." Outside the study window, Maya could see staff already beginning to whisper among themselves, phones buzzing with messages that hadn't been sent yet, but soon would be. The biggest wedding of Maya's career, the one she'd been so proud to land just weeks ago, was now standing on the edge of complete collapse. And somewhere, deep down, Maya had the unsettling feeling that whatever came next was going to change far more than just the wedding plans. By the next morning, the full weight of the situation had settled over the Walker family offices like a storm that hadn't broken yet. Maya arrived to find the usually quiet executive floor buzzing with tension. Phones rang constantly. Assistants moved between rooms with folders pressed to their chests, speaking in hushed voices. Somewhere down the hall, she could hear someone on a call repeating the words "contractual obligations" over and over, like a chant. She was led into a private conference room where Ethan sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by 3 of his senior advisors. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Thanks for coming in," he said. "We need to talk through what happens next." Maya sat down, and one of the advisors, an older man named Mr. Hargrove, who Maya had met briefly during contract negotiations, slid a folder across the table toward her. "Ms. Bennett, I want to start by saying none of this is your responsibility," he said. "But given how closely you've been involved, we thought it was important you understood the full picture." Maya opened the folder. Inside were pages of numbers, vendor contracts, venue agreements, cancellation penalties. She'd seen wedding budgets before, but never anything close to this scale. "If the wedding is canceled outright," Hargrove continued, "the financial losses alone would be in the millions. Venue penalties, vendor cancellation fees, travel reimbursements for guests who've already booked flights from overseas. And that's before we even get into the business side." "The business side?" Maya asked. 3 major partnerships are scheduled to be finalized at events surrounding this wedding," Ethan said quietly. "Deals that took years to negotiate. Several of those partners are flying in specifically for this. If the wedding collapses now, with no explanation, it sends a message that something is wrong inside the company. People pull out of deals over far smaller signals than that." "What about postponing?" Maya asked. "Pushing it back a few months, giving things time to settle?" "We looked into that first," Hargrove said. "Unfortunately, several of the venue and vendor contracts have strict no postponement clauses, specifically because of the size of the event. Postponing triggers nearly the same penalties as canceling outright. Millions in losses, plus the damage to the partnerships either way." Maya sat back, processing it. "So, basically, there's no version of this where the wedding doesn't happen, financially speaking." "That's the situation," Ethan said. The room went quiet. Maya could feel something building, the kind of silence that came right before someone said something they'd been avoiding saying. Ethan finally looked up at her. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to know up front that you can say no. Whatever you decide, this is not going to affect your business or your reputation. I'll make sure of that personally." "Okay," Maya said slowly. "What is it?" "There's one option that solves the financial side of this," Ethan said. "The contracts don't require Caroline specifically. They require a marriage to take place, on this date, at this venue, between myself and someone." He paused. "I know how this sounds, but I'm asking if you'd consider stepping in. A legal marriage, on paper for now, just enough to satisfy the contracts and protect everyone who'd otherwise lose everything because of this." For a moment, Maya genuinely thought she'd misheard him. "You want me to marry you," she said flatly. "In 4 days." "I know how it sounds," Ethan said again, faster this time. "I'm not asking you to actually be my wife in any real sense. This would be strictly practical. A legal formality to prevent a financial disaster that would hurt hundreds of people who have nothing to do with any of this. Afterward, we can quietly handle things however you need. An annulment, a separation agreement, whatever protects you. I'll make sure you're never at a disadvantage in any of it." "Ethan," Maya started. "I know this is insane," he said. I know I'm asking something that probably no one has ever asked you before, but I genuinely don't have another option that doesn't end with a lot of innocent people getting hurt. Vendors who'll go under, employees who'll lose jobs over cancelled contracts, families who've already spent money traveling here. Maya stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. No, she said. Absolutely not. Maya, I'm your wedding planner, Ethan. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. 3 weeks ago, I didn't even know you. Now you're asking me to marry you, legally, in front of 600 people, because your contracts say someone has to stand at that altar. I know it's a lot, Ethan said, standing as well. I'm not asking for an answer right now. I just needed you to know the full situation, because you're the only person I trust to actually understand it without panicking or making it worse. Maya grabbed her bag, her hands shaking slightly. I need to think. I don't even know what I need right now. She left the conference room before anyone could say anything else, walking quickly down the hallway and into an empty elevator, where she finally let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. 4 days. 4 days until the biggest wedding of her career was supposed to happen, and now, somehow, she was the one being asked to walk down the aisle. Maya pressed her back against the elevator wall as it descended, staring at her own reflection in the polished doors, and for the first time since she'd taken this job, she had absolutely no idea what she was supposed to do next. Maya didn't go home that night. She drove around the city for nearly 2 hours, ending up parked near the lakefront long after the sun had gone down, watching the water without really seeing it. Part of her wanted to call Priya and tell her everything, to laugh about how absurd it sounded, to get some outside perspective that would make the whole idea seem as ridiculous as it felt. But every time she picked up her phone, she put it back down. Saying it out loud felt like it would make it real in a way she wasn't ready for. By the time she got home, she had a voicemail from Ethan, short and to the point. There's a charity gala tomorrow night, connected to a few of the wedding sponsors. I have to attend either way, regardless of what you decide. I'd like you to come. Not to discuss anything, just so you can see how I'm handling this. Whatever you decide afterward, I'll respect it completely. Maya almost said no, but curiosity, and maybe something else she wasn't ready to name, won out. The gala was held in a hotel ballroom downtown, filled with the same kind of people who'd been expected at the wedding. Business partners, donors, a few familiar faces from the planning meetings. Word had clearly already started to spread. Maya could feel it the moment she walked in, the whispers, the careful glances, the way conversations seemed to pause slightly whenever Ethan walked past. She watched him move through the room for nearly an hour, and what she saw surprised her. When a reporter from a local business outlet cornered him near the bar and asked, bluntly, whether it was true the wedding was in trouble, Ethan didn't dodge the question or spin it. There have been some personal changes, he said simply. I'd ask that people respect the privacy of everyone involved, especially Caroline. She made a difficult decision, and she made it with more courage than most people would have in her position. That's all I'm going to say. The reporter pushed harder. Some sources are saying she left without warning. Any truth to that? People are allowed to change their minds about their own lives, Ethan said evenly. I'm not going to stand here and turn that into a story for anyone's entertainment. He walked away before the reporter could ask anything else, and Maya noticed something she hadn't expected. He never once said a negative word about Caroline. Not to the reporter, not to the small group of investors who pulled him aside minutes later with obviously prying questions, not even to the old family friends who clearly expected him to be furious. Later, Maya found him standing near one of the tall windows overlooking the city, alone for the first time all evening. You could have blamed her, Maya said quietly, walking up beside him. Most people would have. It would have made things easier for you. Made you the victim instead of the one left scrambling. It wouldn't have been true, Ethan said, without looking away from the window. She didn't do anything wrong. She just told the truth. even when it cost her everything that was comfortable. I'm not going to punish her for being honest just because it's inconvenient for me. Maya was quiet for a moment. That's not what I expected from someone with your last name. Ethan finally turned to look at her. I told you, I've spent a long time trying to be different from what people expect. They stood there for a while, neither of them saying anything, the noise of the gala fading into the background. Ethan, Maya finally said, if I agree to this, and I haven't decided yet, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing it for money. I don't want anything from this beyond what's fair, and honestly, even that feels strange to think about. I understand, Ethan said, and I need it to be completely clear to both of us what this actually is. A practical arrangement, nothing more. I don't want either of us pretending it's something it's not, especially not in front of people who'll be watching every move we make. Agreed, Ethan said. No pressure, no expectations beyond what's necessary to protect the people who'd otherwise be hurt by this. Whenever you decide it's time to end it, we end it. Quietly, on your terms. Maya looked out at the city lights for a long moment, thinking about the vendors who'd spent months preparing for this wedding, the small businesses that would lose contracts overnight, the staff who'd worked for weeks to make everything perfect, only to have it collapse because of something completely outside their control. She thought about Caroline's letter, about courage, and about doing the harder thing because it was the right thing. Okay, Maya said finally. Ethan turned to face her fully. Okay? I'll do it, she said. Not because of the money, and not because anyone's pressuring me, because if I walk away now, a lot of people who had nothing to do with any of this are going to pay for it. And I'd rather deal with something uncomfortable for a while than let that happen. For the first time since Caroline's letter, Ethan looked something close to relieved. Thank you, he said quietly. I mean that. Don't thank me yet, Maya said, managing a small, tired smile. We still have to actually pull this off in 3 days. Ethan almost laughed, a short, surprised sound, like he hadn't expected to laugh again so soon. 3 days, he repeated. Right. Let's go figure out how to plan a wedding. Again. Outside the window, the city stretched out below them, lights flickering like nothing unusual was happening at all, while somewhere above it, 2 people who barely knew each other had just agreed to become partners in something neither of them fully understood yet. The morning of the wedding, Maya stood in front of the mirror in a private suite at the Aspen Resort, staring at her own reflection like she was looking at a stranger. The dress wasn't the one Caroline had chosen. There hadn't been time for that, and Maya wouldn't have worn it even if there had been. Instead, one of the stylists from the original bridal team had pulled together something simple overnight. A soft ivory gown that fit Maya's curves beautifully, elegant without trying too hard to be anything it wasn't. Maya had looked at herself in dresses like this before, at other people's weddings, never once imagining she'd be wearing one herself, in front of 600 strangers, marrying a man she'd known for less than a month. You look beautiful, Priya said from the doorway, her voice softer than usual. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to walk into a meeting I didn't prepare for, Maya admitted. Priya crossed the room and took both of Maya's hands. For what it's worth, I think you're doing something incredibly brave. A lot of people would have just walked away. A lot of people would have been smarter, Maya said, but she managed a small smile. Outside, the resort's mountain venue had been transformed exactly as planned. String lights woven through the trees, rows of white chairs facing a stone archway with the Rocky Mountains rising behind it. From where Maya stood, she could hear the low hum of 600 guests settling into their seats, completely unaware that the bride they were about to see had changed. Word had spread, of course. Ethan had made sure of that. Quiet messages had gone out to close family and key guests the night before, explaining gently that Caroline would not be attending and that circumstances had changed. But for most of the guests, the first they'd hear of it would be in the next few minutes. At exactly 2 o'clock, the music began. Maya walked down the aisle alone. She'd insisted on that, not wanting anyone else dragged into the strangeness of the moment. She kept her eyes forward, focusing on Ethan standing at the end of the aisle in a dark suit, his expression calm in a way that Maya suspected took enormous effort. She could feel the ripple move through the crowd as she walked, the confused glances, the whispered questions, the slight shifting in seats. Who is that? Where's Caroline? She kept walking anyway, chin up, refusing to let her nerves show on her face, even as her heart pounded against her ribs. When she reached the front, Ethan reached out and took her hand gently, giving it a small, steadying squeeze. Before the officiant could begin, Ethan turned slightly toward the crowd. "I want to take just a moment before we start," he said, his voice calm and clear enough to carry across the entire gathering. "Some of you may have heard that there have been changes to today's plans. I won't go into details, because the details aren't anyone's business but the people involved. What I will say is this. Everyone deserves to make honest choices about their own lives, even when the timing is difficult. I respect the choice that was made, and I'd ask that all of you do the same." He paused, glancing briefly at Maya before continuing. "Today, I'm marrying someone who has shown more honesty, integrity, and care in the last few weeks than most people show in years. I know this isn't the day many of you were expecting, but it's the day that's happening, and I couldn't be more grateful for the person standing next to me." A few guests exchanged glances. Some looked surprised, a few looked outright stunned, but nobody said anything. Whatever questions people had, Ethan had clearly closed the door on them, politely but firmly. The ceremony itself was short, just as Maya had originally planned it weeks ago, back when she thought she was only organizing it for someone else. The vows were simple, almost businesslike in their wording, carefully crafted beforehand by Ethan's legal team and reviewed by Maya herself. There was no pretending, no performance of romance neither of them felt. Just two people standing in front of witnesses, making a practical promise to handle an impossible situation together. When the officiant finally said the words making it official, a quiet round of applause rippled through the crowd. Polite, a little uncertain, but not unkind. Maya barely registered any of it. Her hands were trembling slightly as Ethan slipped a plain band onto her finger, and for a brief moment their eyes met. Neither of them said anything. There was nothing to say that would make sense out loud. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Afterward, during the reception, Maya sat beside Ethan at the head table, smiling and nodding through conversations with guests who were clearly trying to figure out who she was and how she fit into all of this. She answered questions carefully. Yes, she'd been the wedding planner. Yes, things had changed quickly. No, she didn't have much else to add. Late that night, after most of the guests had gone and the venue had quieted down, Maya and Ethan stood together on a balcony overlooking the mountains, both still in their wedding clothes, looking more exhausted than either of them had ever felt. "We did it," Ethan said quietly. "We did," Maya agreed. "Now what?" "Now," Ethan said, "we figure out how to live like nothing strange just happened, at least in front of everyone else." Maya nodded slowly, staring out at the dark shapes of the mountains against the night sky. Whatever this arrangement was supposed to be, it had officially begun, and neither of them had any idea just how much it was about to change. The weeks after the wedding moved faster than Maya expected. What she'd thought might be a quiet, low-key arrangement turned into something far more public. As Ethan's wife, Maya was suddenly expected at events she'd never imagined attending. Business dinners, charity functions, partner meetings in cities across the country. At first, she felt completely out of place, like an outsider wearing borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit. Their first trip together as a married couple was to Seattle, for a 3-day summit involving several of Ethan's biggest partners. Maya spent most of the flight nervously reviewing notes Ethan's assistant had sent over. Names, company backgrounds, who was connected to who. "You don't need to memorize all of that," Ethan said, glancing over at her notes. "I just don't want to embarrass you," Maya admitted. "You won't," Ethan said simply. "Just be yourself. That's worked pretty well so far." The summit itself was a blur of handshakes and small talk, but Maya noticed something interesting. People kept seeking her out, not just Ethan. A few of the partners' wives pulled her aside to chat, charmed by how down-to-earth she was compared to the polished, careful people they usually dealt with. One older businessman, after a long conversation with Maya about logistics for a charity gala she'd casually mentioned organizing years ago, ended up offering his company's resources for free. "You just got us a venue sponsorship without even trying," Ethan said later that night, sounding almost amazed. "I was just talking," Maya said, shrugging. "That's exactly my point," Ethan said. In Austin, a few weeks later, the trip was less formal, a smaller gathering tied to one of Ethan's quieter charitable projects, the kind he usually kept out of the spotlight. Maya recognized it immediately as connected to the program he'd told her about back in Nashville, the one that helped small business owners rebuild after losing everything. She watched him interact with the people there, business owners who'd lost everything to larger companies, some of them visibly emotional as they thanked him. Ethan brushed off the gratitude every time, redirecting credit to his team, to the program itself, to anything except himself. "You really don't like being thanked, do you?" Maya said afterward, as they walked back to their hotel through the warm evening air. "It feels weird," Ethan admitted, "like I'm taking credit for fixing something my own family helped break in the first place." Maya was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, I think what you're doing matters, even if you don't want anyone to know about it." Ethan glanced at her, something unreadable in his expression. "You're one of the only people who's ever said that to me without it sounding like flattery." "I don't really do flattery," Maya said. "You've probably noticed." "I have," Ethan said, and there was something warm in his voice that made Maya look away first, focusing very intently on the sidewalk ahead of them. By the time they reached Boston in early autumn, something had shifted between them, slowly, quietly, in ways neither of them talked about directly. They'd developed habits without meaning to. Ethan started saving Maya a seat next to him during long meetings, even when there was no real reason for her to be there. Maya started noticing when he hadn't eaten all day and would order food without asking, setting it in front of him with no explanation needed. On long flights, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm, Ethan working quietly while Maya sketched out wedding concepts for other clients, occasionally turning her laptop toward him to ask his opinion on color schemes, which he always gave more thoughtfully than she expected. In Boston, during a rare free evening, they ended up walking along the waterfront after a dinner event ran long. The city lights reflected off the water, and for a while, neither of them said much, just walking side by side in comfortable silence. "Can I tell you something strange?" Maya said eventually.
Always.
"A few months ago, I thought this whole thing, the wedding, the arrangement, all of it, was going to be the most stressful, awkward situation of my life. And some of it has been. But lately," she paused, searching for the right words, "lately it doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels normal, like this is just how things are now." Ethan stopped walking, turning to look at her. "I've been thinking the same thing," he admitted. "More than I probably should." "What does that mean?" Maya asked carefully. "I don't know yet," Ethan said honestly. "But I know I look forward to these trips more than I used to, and it's not because of the meetings." Maya felt her heart skip slightly, though she quickly told herself it didn't mean anything, that they were both just adjusting to a strange situation, finding comfort in familiarity because there was nothing else familiar to hold on to. But that night, lying awake in her hotel room, Maya found herself thinking about all the small moments that had built up over the past 3 months. The seat Ethan always saved for her, the way he listened when she talked about her work like it actually mattered to him, the quiet evening walks that had become something she looked forward to without quite admitting why. She thought about Caroline's letter, about choosing honesty even when it was inconvenient, and for the first time since this entire arrangement began, Maya allowed herself to wonder, quietly, carefully, whether what she was feeling might be something more than just comfort. She didn't say anything out loud, not yet, but somewhere over the past 3 months, without either of them planning it, something real had started growing between them, and neither of them was entirely sure what to do about it. 6 months after the wedding, Maya and Ethan rented a small house on Cape Cod for what was supposed to be a quiet week away from meetings, phones, and schedules. It was the first real break either of them had taken since everything began, and Maya had been looking forward to it for weeks. Long walks on the beach, slow mornings with coffee, no events to plan and no guest lists to manage. What she hadn't expected was the knock on the door their second evening there. Maya opened it to find Caroline standing on the porch, looking nervous in a way Maya had never seen during the wedding planning months ago. Her hair was shorter now, and there was something lighter in her expression, like someone who'd been carrying a weight for a long time and had finally set it down. "I know this is probably the last thing either of you expected," Caroline said quickly. "I got your address from your office, Ethan. I should have called first. I've been wanting to do this for months, and I kept losing my nerve." Ethan appeared behind Maya, clearly surprised but not upset. "Caroline, come in." They sat together in the small living room, the ocean visible through the windows, the air thick with things unsaid. Caroline looked between them for a long moment before speaking. "I heard about the wedding," she said carefully. "All of it. I want you to know, I'm not here to cause problems. I just needed to see you both, to say some things in person." "You don't owe us anything," Ethan said. "I think I do," Caroline said. "At least an explanation that isn't just a letter." She turned to Maya. "I'm sorry for leaving the way I did, especially with everything it put on you. That wasn't fair, and I knew it wasn't fair, and I still did it because I was scared of what would happen if I stayed even one more day." "You don't need to apologize to me," Maya said gently. "From what I understand, you did something incredibly hard, and from where I'm sitting now, I'm glad you did." Caroline studied her for a moment, then looked at Ethan, then back at Maya, and something in her expression shifted, like she was seeing something neither of them had said out loud yet. "You two are happy," Caroline said softly. It wasn't a question. Neither of them answered right away. "I'm not upset," Caroline added quickly with a small laugh. "I'm actually really relieved. I spent so long worrying that I'd ruined everything for everyone, especially you, Ethan. Seeing this, it makes it feel like maybe leaving wasn't just selfish. Maybe it was the thing that needed to happen for both of us to end up where we were supposed to be." She stayed for another hour, talking easily for the first time since Maya had met her, about the new life she'd built, about people she'd met, about finally feeling like herself instead of a version of herself built for someone else's expectations. By the time she left, hugging Maya briefly at the door, the tension that had hung in the room when she arrived had completely disappeared. "That went better than I expected," Ethan said quietly after Caroline's car pulled away. "She seems happy," Maya said. "Really happy." "She does," Ethan agreed. They stood there for a moment in the doorway, the evening air cool against the warmth of the house behind them. Maya turned to look at Ethan, and before she could second-guess herself, she said the thing she'd been thinking for weeks. "Ethan, with Caroline back and everything settled now, if you wanted to end this, the marriage, I mean, I'd understand. The original reason for all of this doesn't really apply anymore. You're free to do whatever you—" "I don't want to end it," Ethan said, cutting her off, his voice steady. Maya stopped. What? I've thought about this a lot, Ethan said. More than I probably should have, given everything that's happened. But somewhere between Nashville and the gala and Seattle and Boston and every ordinary moment in between, this stopped feeling like an arrangement to me. A long time ago, actually. Ethan. I'm not saying this because I think you owe me anything, he continued. I'm saying it because it's true, and because I think you deserve to know it, even if it changes things. You became the most important person in my life, Maya. Not because of contracts or weddings or any of the reasons this started. Just because of you. Maya stood there, the ocean breeze pulling at her hair, her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with nerves this time. I feel the same way, she said quietly. I felt that way for a while now. I just didn't know how to say it, or if I should. For a long moment, neither of them said anything else. Then Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand, not the careful, practiced gesture from their wedding day, but something real, something neither of them needed to think about. That evening, they walked down to the beach together, the sky turning soft shades of orange and pink as the sun dipped toward the horizon. They didn't talk about contracts or business or anything that had brought them together in the first place. They didn't need to. Standing there on the quiet sand, watching the sunset stretch across the water, Maya thought about how strange and unexpected this entire year had been. A wedding that almost didn't happen, a marriage that started as a favor, and a connection that had grown into something neither of them had planned for, but both, somehow, had been searching for all along. What began as a way to save a wedding had become something far more lasting, not because they had to, but because, in the end, they truly wanted to. And as the sun disappeared behind the horizon, they stood together, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next.